the conditional cash transfer, if that was one of the ways to make people economically inclusive.
Yeah.
In your view, Dr. Nuruddin Abubakar Zara, I'm sure you know so much about economics and financial literacy, everything that can get anyone empowered financially and economically. Would you say conditional cash transfer, as is being done in the country, is a way to really empower people?
Well, anyway, the first issue here is that we're looking at those, what do you call it, economically disadvantaged group, for them to be encouraged to come into the formal financial space, isn't it? Because, based on the report that has been, released by FINA, we still have somewhere around, 30 million Nigerians who does not have basic access to financial services. So in order to encourage them to come into the formal financial space, from what we call informal sector into the formal sector, then those economic opportunities like what they call a conditional cash transfer and other schemes like that, they are all motivators to or enablers for people to actually come into the formal financial space, right? So from the government side, series of activities actually are being churned out in order to encourage those class of people, because they are actually the target. Do you understand? There are, when you're talking about those, there are some vulnerability or some gaps, or some groups, that are more vulnerable to lack of access. We're talking about those living in the rural areas. We're talking about also gender imbalance. More women have lesser access. More women have, women have less access, compared to men. Then also the youth, that is the age 18 to 35, they also have, they are among the disadvantaged, in terms of access to financial services. Then we have a particular segment of the country, for example, Northwest and Northeast, they constituted larger portion of the exclusion, then large chunk of MSMEs. So what we're trying to say here is that some of those policies and programs of government are also being churned out in order to target those specific groups, right, that are vulnerable to exclusion. So how can we now do such things to encourage them into coming into the formal financial services? Coming into the formal financial services has a lot of advantage, of course, for the government and, of course, for the people themselves as Nigerians, in terms of policy, in terms of planning, and whatever the government included, there's a need to be backed up by the data. If government is taking certain decisions, they need to have certain backup, to ensure that this group of people that are not within the service, or they are vulnerable, or they are at disadvantaged position, how can we capture them into this financial services? I think that's it. And the implication of this on the national security, it is the idle mind, of course, that is vulnerable to go into all those misbehaviors like insecurity and all that issue. So economic approach to all these issues can contribute a lot into having Nigerians come into formal financial services, of course, through economic opportunities and financial inclusion in the country.